let me talk about the strategy throughout the life cycle. Okay, and let me come back to why it's important for Facebook to do what they're doing, and they're doing the right thing. So let's start from the beginning. And I want to talk about the first industrial use of solar, which some of you, those of you who took my clean energy class, you know that the first industrial use of solar happened exactly 100 years ago in Egypt. And look at the parabolic troughs, right? They basically used solar energy to pump water from the Nile River to irrigate the cotton fields in Egypt. Now look at that, and look at that technology in 1912 and then again in the 1980s. The same kind of architecture, right? We've made a lot of progress, but basically after the 1912, after the First World War, basically, solar energy products basically, went nowhere until the 1960s, 70s, 80s, right? And nothing really happened until these got built in the 80s. Most of the technologies out there, both PV and thermal, came out of a program that Jimmy Carter actually started in the late 70s. And of course, even that went nowhere after the 80s. So my point is that solar went up and then down, and then up in the 80s, and then nothing happened in the 90s and 2000s, at least not in the US. And this is 2009, right? So look at the technology, look at the architecture, parabolic trough, 1912, 1980s, 2009. It's the same type of architecture, but it's been 100 years. And solar went up and down and up and down. So the point I'm making is that a lot of products come out and they go nowhere. There's no market for it at the time. Doesn't mean that they're bad products. Means that there's no market for it right at that point. And whereas normally we see that nice little curve, adoption curve, in fact, usually it's much uglier than that. Usually it's like this or it's like this. You just die and then move on, right? Hopefully you're not going to die, right? But the product might. So, this is the technology adoption life cycle, but it's a neat little graph. And in fact, life is not like that, okay? And usually life is, more like, even if the early adopters get in, it doesn't mean that anyone else is going to buy it. And even if they get in, it doesn't mean that anyone else is going to buy it. So it's much more difficult than it seems to be. And the markets are very complex systems. I mean, we simplify them, but they are complex systems. The life cycle is seldom a straight little line, and there are many variables that we need to follow and whatnot. And timing is important. It's being too early may be even worse than being too late, as these solar parabolic troughs show. And the question is, how do you know if you're ready for the market? How do you know if there is a market for your product? Okay? So the point is, start with segmentation and targeting. Find the pain. Do what we did last week or the week prior. Okay? Find the pain today. All right? So it's fine if this Tony Seba guy says that solar is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity, and it will be, right? But that's not enough for you to go out and start a solar company. You have to find a product and you have to find a market today. Okay? Or if you're developing something and it's going to take you a year, you have to see where the market's going to be in a year. Does that make sense? So you start with segmentation and targeting. Find the pain. That's the key. Find the pain today. All right? Not in 2020, not in 2050, today. Because the pain is going to mean market pull, and that is what you want. You want the market to pull your product. Pushing a product is hard. It's really, really hard. Okay? Pulling means that the market is ready for you. Okay. So let me give you the, all right. Quickly, I'm going to go through StarMine. It's in the book, but StarMine was a company started about 10 years ago, and the eureka moment happened when the founder, Joe Gatto, realized that the market, the stock, follows earnings. Stock prices, long terms, follows earnings, right? But the problem is that the media talks about average or median earnings estimate. It did not differentiate between the good analysts and the bad analysts, right? And he realized if you know who those good analysts are, then you have a huge advantage over the market, because the stock price is going to follow those analysts who are more correct in estimating earnings. Does that make sense? So that was the big realization. And I can talk about it because, in fact, I reviewed the first business plan, right? And at the time, a lot of companies were going broad. We're like doing these big web strategies, going after the billion-dollar opportunities, of course. And my advice to Joe was go small. Not large, go small. Target, as tight as you possibly can, grow from there. So, I mean, you can look at the basis of segmentation back at home, but that's exactly what he did. And in fact, what he found was that there were 4 distinct segments: the retail user, the quantitative researcher, quants, fundamental analyst, and the technical analyst. Those would have been the customers. And there were segmentation basis and whatever, then the targeting factors. And at the end of all this process, it turned out that quants there were in the hundreds, right? Retail users were in the millions, hundreds, thousands, and thousands, right? But it turned out that even though there were only a few hundred, I think 400 or 500, that's it, in the whole United States, potential customers, that was the target market, on these basis of segmentation, it was a prime market. There was a big pain. He added incredible value by doing that. I mean, these are the folks, the quants, who are creating models for all these investment banks and investment management companies, and even a 1 or 2% advantage on $100 million that they're managing. 1% advantage is $1 million. Does that make sense? That's value that they can get out of this piece of software. So if you know you can make $1 million or $2 million extra a year, how much would you pay for it? Right? So he went after the smallest market that made sense, okay, which runs counter to what you hear from most folks, right? Yeah.
On the graph, isn't there an issue with this targeting matrix because you're assigning the same amount of value to each target basis? So like the sophistication level and the size of industry are both equal in importance.
In the last one? Or here, in the targeting?
So it's like each target basis is the same weight, exactly.
No, I think it's because I'm asking your question for you, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not giving you all the information, right? What I'm saying is this is more or less what the way that he targeted, right? Don't use this, use the stuff that we saw here in this course, right? I'm not giving you all the details here. What I'm saying is that he went through this process and he chose the smallest possible market, which at the time, a lot of folks said, what are you smoking, right? Why don't you want to go after the big, retail and whatnot? Because it didn't make any sense, right? So he went after the small market, and the history of the company is that, in fact, he went, he doubled revenues pretty much every year until 2006 or 7. And then he sold the company for $100 million to Reuters, and now it's called something else, right? But folks were paying up to $500,000 for this software. So what do you care if it's only 400 people? I mean, he raised $1 million in his angel funding, right? People were willing to pay $500,000. If you're a $1 billion fund, then you can make an extra 1%. That's $10 million. Does that make sense? All right. So let's go back to what's the market for our thermo-electric friend, right? Which we started talking about last week. And what we did was we segmented and we targeted. And we came up with these segments. Okay, I'm just repeating what we did. If there is, so we're early in the adoption life cycle. If there is a clear market opportunity, meaning by market opportunity, I mean one of these cells, so the combination of product and market. If there is one clear, meaning it's a 10, it's a 9.9, it's a 9.8, then focus on that right away. Don't wait. Okay? Now, the problem is that most times we're going to find a cluster of maybe 2 products and maybe 2 market opportunities. And it's not going to be the 9.9, 8.9, 9.1, and so on. Okay? So even then, this is good because we've gone from the world, right? What some would call rich guys, to 2 markets and 2 products, which is great. We've made a lot of progress. Okay? So what you do at this point is you develop prototypes, advanced prototypes, maybe products that actually work, but they're not, don't spend $1 billion just yet, and go back, right? Whereas so far we've done a conceptual exercise, do the actual, put it in place. Is there a pain? How much will you pay for this? Okay? And ask for a check. So actually Joe from StarMine, he asked for a check. If they said, oh, this is nice, come back. No. How much will you pay? I want a check. And in fact, some people wrote a check. They were so interested in this product, they actually wrote a check. That's when you know you have, a market opportunity. Does that make sense? Okay. So you have to repeat. You have 2 and 2. Repeat. Keep repeating until you have the clear opportunity. So keep getting the information. Keep finding the pain. Find the pain. Who is that, customer who will give you a check? That's how you know. Will they give you a check? Right? Now, even a large company. So Abengoa is a multi-billion-dollar company based in Spain, and Abengoa Solar is a business within Abengoa that built the PS10, the first solar power tower, commercial solar power tower in the world. And even a multi-billion-dollar company was focused on two technologies, power tower and Trough, and two markets, Southwest US and Southern Spain. That's it. And you would say, but this is a multi-billion-dollar company. Isn't there an opportunity in South Africa and in the Middle East and in Chile? And yes, but you got to focus. Okay, so they focused on just these two markets and these two technologies until they found their opportunity, the big, big, big pain. And they actually are developing a huge power plant in Arizona right now, 250, 80 exactly, called Solana. So here's the strategy. Start with a broad kind of focus. 2 and 2 is fine, okay? But don't spend $100 million just yet. Develop advanced prototypes. Keep doing it, keep digging until you get the pain, right? Until you get the pain. And you start focusing and focusing and focusing. Until, at this point, it's what I call laser focus. Okay? So the earliest adopters are okay with bugs. They're okay with technology that's not like airtight. That's okay. Okay? Go to them, develop the market, develop the product. They're going to help you through this process. But you're going to keep focusing. Part of this is going to be the painful exercise of divesting some of the businesses that you have originally, okay? Until you focus on one product and one target market, okay? And this is what Jeffrey Moore called the chasm, although, it has evolved the meaning. So you focus as soon as you can. Now, you don't need to wait. If you find that big opportunity in the beginning, then you focus then, okay? As soon as you've identified an attractive enough for you product and market segment, then you focus. So I talked about StarMine, which went from 0 to 20 million. I'll talk about Symantec and a little bit about Apple, right? And I talked about Abengoa. So, talking about nuclear, your first goal is to achieve critical mass in your target market, which is why if you're a startup company, it's interesting to go after smaller markets, okay? Well-defined markets. Now, they have to be small enough that you can win, but big enough for your investors to find it interesting. Does that make sense? So it can be a market of 10 people, I don't know, unless that's what's interesting. Now, critical mass is the point of no return, meaning beyond critical mass, the market is going to self-fulfill. Okay? So whereas in the beginning you were going out to sell the product, when the market reaches critical mass, everybody's going to want it, right? So basically you're going to be picking up the phone or fulfilling orders. And that is the best place to be. Absolutely, fulfilling orders. It poses a different set of challenges, but it's a good set of challenges, right? So before critical mass, you focus on generating demand and then on fulfilling. different. So what are the keys? Market size, the smaller it is, the better defined it is, the bigger the pain, the more of a chance you have of reaching critical mass. Adaptability, make it simple. Make the product simple, right? Simplify. Take away features. Don't add features. Take away features, okay? And value prop, of course, the easier it is, the simpler it is, then, the better it is for the market to reach critical mass. And laser focus means no plan B, okay? No plan B. You're gonna get married. No plan B.
Enjoy it.
I mean, that's it. Once you get married, you throw out all your Match.com, phone numbers. That's it. No plan B, right? If not, don't bother getting married. Does that make sense? No plan B. That is what laser focus means. Put all your wood behind one single arrow. Symantec, interesting. So I talked about StarMine, but look at Symantec. Symantec in the 90s, in the 80s also, went sideways. Look at the stock. The stock was somewhere around 5 or 6 through, the whole 80s and 90s. And suddenly in 2000, boom, the thing took off, right? And within 5 years, it went up about 10 times. What happened? So Symantec in 1999 had all these products. And, basically what they told me was that the only commonality between all the products was the yellow boxes. Okay? They didn't know who their customers were. They didn't have a direct channel to their customer. They were basically a publisher. They bought companies, they put it in a yellow box, and they put it on Best Buy. That's it. That's what they did. And that worked for them, but it wouldn't take them to the next level. So what they did was focus. They hired a new CEO who said, you know what, we have too many products going after too many markets, we need to focus. And these were the targeting factors that they used. No clear leader, large and growing market opportunity, can we acquire the strength, blah, 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 right? So you can, it's in the book. And tangible goals, and that's what made all the difference. Not adding stuff, but actually spinning off. So they spun off all the products and technologies that did not meet these targeting factors. They went from 600 million to 1.6 billion in basically 4 or 5 years. The stock went up 6x, actually from 10 to 60. Not bad. And they became, a great software company, whereas, they were sideways for 10 years. So, what they call the chasm, crossing the chasm, is focus. You cannot go to the mass market without focusing on one product and one target market, period. Okay? The early majority, they remember what I said before, that they don't want to be the first, but they don't want to be the last. They will only go with the market winner. But who is the market winner if there are 20, 30 companies vying for that market opportunity? Which, if it's a good market opportunity, they will be. Okay? The only way for you to compete is going to be to totally focus on that market. It's going to be to love your customer. Love your customer. Beyond commitment. Okay? So, no plan B. And you have to show them that you're thoroughly committed to them. Okay? That's going to be the only way for you to compete in the, to make the jump from the techies and the early adopters to the broader pragmatist market. Okay? And, all these things are keys to what you need to do, meaning you need to reduce uncertainty, generate word of mouth, and all that. But the key is you have to appear to be the leader. Okay? You have to earn their trust that you'll hang around, that you'll be around. No different from getting married again, right? Earn their trust. Love them to death. Okay? Love your customer. Okay. Again, focus. All right? And I have a quote from Steve Jobs about focus. And focus is not just what you got to focus on, but all the other distractions. Getting away from all the other opportunities that are distractions. Even Apple, okay, which, this is Apple's revenues, up and down, and then up, and then boom. Here's when they came up with the iPod, right? iPod, boom, right? And then they came up with the iPhone, all right? And then they came up with the iPad. So a mistake would have been to come up with all these products at the same time. Does that make sense? And that is the strategy for expansion. So once you have a market, so we started with targeting, and we said we're going to go after, the product is exhaust, waste, heat to power, and our target market is data center operations manager. How do you expand from here? Assume that you've earned their trust, you've earned their love, and you've achieved critical mass, and you're like, okay, so we're ready for the next market. How do you go?
You get introduction from your lead champion.
So basically, go back and do this again. Okay? Go back and do the targeting exercise again. Right? Now, what's going to end up happening is that you're going to move to adjacent cells, which means either take that same product into adjacent markets or stay in that market. And the great thing about being in one market, especially if you're the winner, is that you will understand more about the pain in that market. And I assure you, everyone has 83 problems. So once you've taken care of one, there's still 82. Okay? And if you're inside, then you know what the other 82 are. So if you do the same targeting exercise, you'll come up with another opportunity to develop another product for the same market. Or you can say, you know what, I'm going to go horizontal. I want to take this product and take it to other markets. Does that make sense? And either one is fine. Okay? You just can't do both at the same time, unless you're a large company. Question?
That was my question. How do you choose between what helps you decide, should you expand horizontally or vertically?
Yeah. So it depends on the corporate strategy. And if you're an Apple computer, if you're a Cisco system, you'll probably go horizontal because you want to go after as large, take that product, scale it as much as you possibly can. If not, then you'll go deep into one market. It depends on your corporate strategy. Does that make sense?
But is it safer to go horizontal versus vertical?
All right, I'll talk about hypergrowth next week, but safe is to stay in the same market. The safest thing to do is to stay in the same market, right? They know you, they love you, they trust you. Find another pain and stay there, right? That's safer. But the horizontal strategy is more if you want to IPO, right? If you want to really, really grow, that is the way to go. And it's going to be a combination. It's going to be a combination. It's not going to be either or, but depends on your resources, on your corporate strategy, and